Marcus Thompson had never imagined that his morning jog would change 3 lives forever. The 34-year-old single father was struggling to make ends meet, working 2 jobs while raising his 8-year-old daughter, Emma. His small apartment in downtown Chicago felt cramped, but it was all he could afford after the divorce. The one bright spot in their lives was Max, a golden retriever mix they had rescued from the shelter 2 years ago. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Marcus dropped Emma off at school, her backpack bouncing as she ran toward the building. "Don't forget Max needs his medicine tonight, Dad," she called over her shoulder. Marcus smiled, watching his daughter disappear into the crowd of children. Max had been diagnosed with a mild heart condition, and the veterinary bills were another burden on his already tight budget. After his shift at the warehouse, Marcus decided to take Max for their usual walk through Millennium Park. The autumn air was crisp and the leaves crunched under their feet. Max trotted happily beside him, tail wagging at every squirrel and passing dog. They had developed a routine over the months. The same path, the same bench where they would rest, the same treat that Marcus would pull from his pocket. As they approached the reflecting pool area, Marcus noticed more activity than usual. Security personnel in dark suits were positioned at various points around the park. Black SUVs were parked along the street, and several men spoke quietly into earpieces. Marcus had seen enough movies to recognize the signs of some important person's visit, probably a politician or celebrity making an appearance. He decided to take a different route, not wanting to get caught up in whatever event was happening, but Max had other ideas. The dog suddenly became alert, his ears perked up and his body tense. He started pulling on the leash not toward the commotion but away from it, toward a cluster of trees near the parking area. "Come on, boy, let's go home," Marcus said, tugging gently on the leash, but Max refused to move. Instead, he began to whine softly, a sound Marcus had never heard from him before. The dog's behavior was completely out of character. Max was usually obedient and calm, rarely showing signs of distress or anxiety. Meanwhile, across the park, Victoria Sterling was preparing for what should have been a routine photo opportunity. As the CEO of Sterling Industries, one of Chicago's largest renewable energy companies, she was used to public appearances. Today's event was particularly important, the announcement of a new partnership that would bring hundreds of green jobs to the city. Victoria had built her company from the ground up, starting with a small solar panel installation business 15 years ago. Now at 45, she was one of the most influential businesswomen in the Midwest. Her success had come with a price, though. The renewable energy sector was competitive and sometimes hostile. She had received threats before, usually from competitors or groups opposed to clean energy initiatives. Her security team, led by James Rodriguez, had conducted their usual sweep of the area. Everything appeared normal. The event was scheduled to begin in 30 minutes, and already, local news crews were setting up their equipment. Victoria reviewed her speech one final time in the back seat of her armored sedan. "Everything looks clear, Ms. Sterling," Rodriguez said through the intercom. "We're ready when you are." Victoria nodded and stepped out of the vehicle. She was dressed in her signature navy blue suit, her silver hair perfectly styled. As she walked toward the designated speaking area, she waved to the small crowd that had gathered. Parents with children, local business owners, and environmental advocates had come to witness the announcement. What none of them knew was that 50 yards away, hidden behind a maintenance building, a man named Derek Hoffman was preparing to change everything. Hoffman was a disgruntled former employee of Sterling Industries, who had been fired 3 months earlier for safety violations. His dismissal had sent him into a spiral of anger and resentment. He had spent weeks planning this moment, studying Victoria's schedule and security protocols. In his twisted mind, he believed that eliminating Victoria would somehow restore his reputation and get back at the company that had, in his view, wronged him. The pistol in his jacket pocket felt heavy, but his resolve was firm. Back near the trees, Max's behavior was becoming increasingly agitated. The dog was now pacing back and forth, his whining becoming more urgent. Marcus looked around, trying to understand what was bothering his usually calm companion. He noticed that Max kept looking in the direction of the maintenance building, his hackles slightly raised. "What is it, boy?" Marcus asked, following Max's gaze. At first he saw nothing unusual, just a utility building and some landscaping equipment, but then he caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow that seemed out of place. Marcus had learned to trust Max's instincts over the past 2 years. The dog had once alerted him to a gas leak in their apartment building, potentially saving several lives. Another time, Max had refused to let Emma play in a particular area of their local park, and later they discovered broken glass scattered in the grass. As Victoria began her speech, her voice carrying across the park through the microphone system, Max suddenly broke free from Marcus's grip. The leash slipped from his hands as the dog bolted toward the maintenance building. Marcus called after him, but Max was running with a purpose that Marcus had never seen before. The dog's sudden movement caught the attention of several security personnel. Rodriguez spoke quickly into his earpiece, alerting his team to the running animal. In the post-9/11 world, even a loose dog near a high-profile event was cause for concern. But Max wasn't running toward Victoria or the crowd. He was running directly toward Derek Hoffman, who had just emerged from behind the building with his weapon drawn. The dog seemed to sense the danger that no human had detected. Marcus ran after Max, his heart pounding. He could see his dog approaching someone near the building, but from his angle he couldn't see what was happening. All he knew was that Max was in potential danger, and he had to reach him. The next few minutes would unfold in a way that none of them could have predicted, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever link the lives of a struggling single father, a powerful CEO, and one remarkable dog who somehow understood that heroism sometimes comes in the most unexpected forms. Derek Hoffman stepped out from behind the maintenance building, his hands trembling as he raised the pistol. Victoria Sterling was approximately 60 yards away, clearly visible at the podium. The morning sun created perfect lighting, and there were no obstacles between him and his target. Everything was going according to his plan. He had rehearsed this moment countless times in his mind. 3 months of unemployment, 3 months of rejection letters, 3 months of his savings dwindling to nothing, all because Victoria Sterling had signed the termination papers that ruined his life. In his distorted thinking, she deserved what was coming to her. But as Derek steadied his aim, something unexpected happened. A golden blur came charging toward him from the left side, moving faster than he had ever seen a dog run. Max was in full sprint, his powerful legs covering ground with remarkable speed. The dog's instincts had kicked in completely, and his focus was entirely on the man with the weapon. Derek heard the dog approaching and turned slightly, confused by this sudden interruption. He had planned for security guards, police officers, and various other complications, but not for a charging animal. The momentary distraction caused him to lower his weapon just as Max reached him. The impact was tremendous. Max, weighing nearly 70 pounds and moving at full speed, hit Derek squarely in the midsection. The force sent both of them tumbling to the ground, the pistol flying from Derek's hand and skittering across the concrete pathway. Derek hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of him, while Max immediately recovered and positioned himself between Derek and the fallen weapon. Marcus reached the scene just seconds later, breathing heavily from his sprint across the park. What he saw made no immediate sense to him. His dog was standing over a man on the ground, and there was what appeared to be a gun several feet away. The man was dressed in dark clothing and appeared to be injured from the fall. "Max, here, boy," Marcus called, but the dog didn't move. Max remained in a protective stance, his eyes never leaving Derek, who was slowly trying to get to his feet. The dog was growling now, a low, threatening sound that Marcus had never heard from his normally gentle pet. It was then that Marcus noticed Derek's eyes. They held a wild, desperate look that made Marcus's blood run cold. This wasn't someone who had accidentally dropped a toy gun or a prop. The weapon lying on the ground was real, and the man struggling to stand had intended to use it. Across the park, Victoria was midway through her speech when James Rodriguez received urgent radio chatter from one of his perimeter agents. "We have a situation near the maintenance building. Possible weapon involved. Moving to investigate." Rodriguez immediately stepped closer to Victoria, his hand moving instinctively toward his concealed weapon. Years of training had taught him to remain calm during potential threats, but his muscles were tensed and ready for action. He scanned the crowd, looking for any signs of unusual behavior or movement. "Continue with your speech, ma'am," he whispered to Victoria during a pause in her remarks. "But be prepared to move quickly if I give the signal." Victoria nodded almost imperceptibly. She had dealt with security concerns before, and she trusted Rodriguez's judgment completely. She continued speaking about the environmental benefits of the new partnership, her voice steady and professional, even as her heart rate began to increase. Back at the maintenance building, Derek was getting to his feet, his eyes locked on the pistol that Max was guarding. The dog seemed to understand exactly what was at stake. Every time Derek moved toward the weapon, Max would take a step forward, his growl becoming more pronounced. Marcus realized he needed help immediately. He pulled out his cell phone and dialed 911, keeping his eyes on the unfolding situation. "This is Marcus Thompson at Millennium Park. I need police immediately. There's a man with a gun near the maintenance building by the reflecting pool area. My dog has somehow stopped him, but I need backup right away." The 911 operator began asking for details, but Marcus could see that Derek was becoming more agitated. The man was looking around desperately, probably trying to figure out how to retrieve his weapon or escape the situation. Marcus realized that he couldn't just stand there and wait for help to arrive. "Stay back," Derek shouted at Marcus, his voice filled with frustration and anger. "This has nothing to do with you or your dog. Just walk away and pretend you didn't see anything." But Marcus understood that walking away wasn't an option. Through the trees, he could see the crowd gathered around Victoria Sterling's event. If this man managed to retrieve his weapon, innocent people would be in danger. His daughter's face flashed through his mind, and he thought about all the times he had taught Emma to stand up for what was right. "I can't do that," Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "Whatever you're planning, it's not worth it. There are children over there, families. Think about what you're doing," Derek laughed bitterly. "Think about what I'm doing? I've been thinking about nothing else for months. That woman destroyed my life. She took away everything I worked for, everything I built. She deserves to pay for what she did to me." Marcus began to understand the situation more clearly. This wasn't a random act of violence, but a targeted attack on Victoria Sterling. He had read about her in the local newspapers. She was known for being a tough but fair businesswoman who had transformed Chicago's renewable energy sector. "Whatever happened between you and Ms. Sterling, this isn't the answer," Marcus said, taking a small step forward. Max remained in position, never taking his eyes off Derek. "You shoot her and your life is over too. You'll spend the rest of your days in prison, if you're lucky enough to survive the security response." More security personnel were now converging on their location. Marcus could see men in dark suits moving quickly through the trees, their hands positioned near their weapons. The situation was escalating rapidly, and Marcus realized that Derek was running out of options. Derek must have sensed it too, because his desperation was becoming more apparent. "I don't care what happens to me anymore," he said, lunging toward the pistol. But Max was ready. The dog immediately moved to block his path, barking loudly now to alert everyone in the area. The sound of Max's barking carried across the park, reaching the ears of Rodriguez and his security team. Victoria paused in her speech, looking questioningly at her security chief. Rodriguez made a quick decision. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need to pause the presentation for a moment due to a minor security situation," he announced into his microphone. "Please remain calm and follow the instructions of our security personnel." The crowd began to murmur with concern as security guards started directing them away from the area. Victoria was quickly escorted back toward her armored vehicle, but she could see through the trees that something significant was happening near the maintenance building. Derek made another desperate grab for the weapon, but Max was too quick. The dog actually pushed the gun further away with his paw, demonstrating an intelligence and understanding of the situation that amazed Marcus. It was as if Max knew exactly what needed to be done to keep everyone safe. Police sirens could now be heard in the distance, growing louder by the second. Derek looked around wildly, realizing that his window of opportunity was closing rapidly. His carefully planned attack was falling apart, all because of one dog's incredible instincts and courage. The first police car arrived within minutes, its sirens wailing as it pulled up near the maintenance building. Two officers jumped out, their weapons drawn but pointed downward in a ready position. They could see the standoff clearly: a man on the ground, a civilian standing nearby, and a golden retriever positioned protectively over what appeared to be a handgun. "This is Officer Patricia Chen, Chicago PD," the lead officer announced loudly. "Everyone stay exactly where you are and keep your hands visible." Marcus immediately raised his hands, relief flooding through him as professional help arrived. "Officer, my name is Marcus Thompson. This man was attempting to use that weapon, and my dog somehow stopped him. I called 911 about 5 minutes ago. Derek remained on the ground, his face a mixture of defeat and anger. The reality of his situation was finally sinking in. His plan had failed completely, and now he was facing serious criminal charges. The months of planning, the rage that had consumed him, all of it had led to this moment of complete failure. Officer Chen's partner, Officer Miguel Santos, began coordinating with the security personnel who were now arriving at the scene. James Rodriguez approached carefully, his credentials clearly displayed. "I'm head of security for Ms. Sterling. We had no prior intelligence about this threat. If it weren't for this gentleman and his dog, we might have had a tragedy on our hands." Max remained in his protective position, but his tail began to wag slightly as he sensed that the immediate danger was passing. The dog looked up at Marcus as if seeking approval but didn't move from his spot guarding the weapon. "Good boy, Max," Marcus said softly. "You can come here now." Max trotted over to Marcus, accepting the praise and pets that his owner offered. Even the police officers seemed amazed by the dog's behavior. Officer Chen had been on the force for 12 years and had never seen anything quite like it. "Sir, we're going to need a detailed statement from you about what happened here," Officer Santos said to Marcus. "But first, let me say that your dog probably saved lives today." That weapon was loaded and ready to fire. Derek was helped to his feet and immediately placed in handcuffs. As he was being read his rights, he continued to mutter angrily about Victoria Sterling and how she had ruined his life. The officers had dealt with disgruntled employees before, but the level of planning and intent that Derek had shown was particularly concerning. Meanwhile, Victoria Sterling was being briefed on the situation from the safety of her armored vehicle. Rodriguez had given her the basic details, but she was having trouble processing what she was hearing. Someone had actually planned to kill her, and the attack had been prevented by a random dog walker and his pet. "I want to meet them," Victoria said firmly. "Both the man and his dog." Rodriguez shook his head. "Ma'am, we still need to complete our security sweep and make sure there are no other threats. It would be better if we arranged a meeting later, in a more controlled environment." But Victoria Sterling hadn't become successful by avoiding difficult situations. "James, that man and his dog just saved my life. The least I can do is thank them personally. We'll keep the security protocols in place, but I'm not leaving here without meeting them." Back at the maintenance building, Marcus was giving his statement to the police. He explained how Max had become agitated and had broken free to run toward Derek. He described the dog's protective behavior and how Max had seemed to understand exactly what needed to be done. "Has your dog ever exhibited protective behavior like this before?" Officer Chen asked, making notes in her report. Marcus thought for a moment. "He's always been good at sensing things. He once alerted us to a gas leak, and another time he wouldn't let my daughter play in an area where there turned out to be broken glass. But nothing like this. It's like he could sense the danger that none of us humans could detect." Dr. Sarah Williams, a veterinarian who specialized in animal behavior, would later explain that dogs have incredible sensory abilities that humans lack. Their sense of smell is thousands of times more sensitive than humans, and they can detect changes in body chemistry that occur when someone is experiencing intense emotions like rage or fear. Max had likely sensed Derek's elevated stress hormones and aggressive intentions long before any human could have noticed. As the police finished processing the scene, Victoria Sterling approached with her security detail. She walked directly toward Marcus, her expression a mixture of gratitude and amazement. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Victoria Sterling," she said, extending her hand. "I understand that you and your dog just prevented what could have been a terrible tragedy." Marcus shook her hand, still somewhat in shock about the entire situation. "I'm just glad Max was there. He's the real hero in this story. I was just trying to keep up with him." Victoria knelt down to Max's level, and the dog approached her cautiously. After a moment, he allowed her to pet him, his tail wagging gently. "Hello there, Max. Thank you for being such a good boy today." As she stood up, Victoria learned more about Marcus's situation. Through casual conversation, she discovered that he was a single father working 2 jobs, struggling to make ends meet while raising his daughter Emma. She also learned about Max's heart condition and the ongoing veterinary expenses that were straining Marcus's already tight budget. "Mr. Thompson, would it be possible for me to do something to help with Max's medical expenses?" Victoria asked. "It seems like the least I can do after what he's done for me." Marcus was overwhelmed by the offer. "Ms. Sterling, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't accept charity. Max did what he did because he's a good dog. not because he expected anything in return. Victoria smiled at his response. It wouldn't be charity, Mr. Thompson, it would be gratitude. And besides, I have a feeling that Max is going to become quite famous after today. The media is going to want to hear this story. She was right. Within hours, news crews were arriving at the park to cover the story of the assassination attempt that was foiled by a golden retriever. The footage from security cameras clearly showed Max's heroic actions, and the story quickly spread beyond Chicago to national news networks. Emma Thompson was at school when her father called to explain what had happened. At first, she didn't believe him. Max was gentle and playful at home, not the kind of dog she would have expected to stop a dangerous criminal. But when she saw the news reports that evening, she was filled with pride for her four-legged family member. Dad, does this mean Max is famous now? Emma asked as they watched the evening news together. Marcus laughed, scratching Max behind the ears as the dog lay contentedly beside them on the couch. I guess it does, sweetheart. But he's still the same good boy he's always been. The story resonated with people across the country. In an era of constant negative news, the tale of a loyal dog protecting strangers from danger offered a much-needed reminder of the goodness that exists in the world. Social media exploded with posts about Max, and for Hero Max began trending on multiple platforms. Derek Hoffman was charged with attempted murder, possession of an illegal firearm, and making terrorist threats. During his interrogation, he revealed that he had been planning the attack for months, studying Victoria's schedule and security arrangements. His termination from Sterling Industries had been due to repeated safety violations that put other workers at risk. But in his mind, he had been wrongfully persecuted. The incident also led to a review of security protocols for public events. While Victoria's security team had done everything by the book, the fact that Derek had been able to position himself so close to the event with a weapon highlighted potential vulnerabilities in current procedures. But the most immediate impact was on the lives of Marcus, Emma, and Max Thompson. Their quiet, struggling existence was about to change in ways they never could have imagined. The media attention was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. By the next morning, reporters were camped outside his apartment building, all wanting to interview the man whose dog had saved a CEO's life. News vans lined the street, and neighbors were peeking out their windows with curiosity. Marcus had to take the day off from both his jobs to deal with the situation. He called his supervisor at the warehouse and the restaurant where he worked evenings, explaining the circumstances. Both employers had already seen the news and were understanding, though Marcus worried about losing income he couldn't afford to miss. Emma was thrilled by all the attention, but Marcus was more cautious. He had agreed to give a few interviews, but he insisted on keeping the focus on Max, rather than on their personal struggles. He didn't want to be seen as seeking sympathy or handouts, even though the veterinary bills for Max's heart condition were indeed a significant burden. Victoria Sterling, meanwhile, was dealing with her own media storm. The attempted assassination had raised serious questions about security measures for high-profile business leaders. Her company's stock price had actually risen after the incident, as investors seemed impressed by her composed handling of the crisis and the positive media coverage surrounding the rescue. But Victoria couldn't stop thinking about Marcus and his family. She had done some research on him through her company's human resources department, and what she learned touched her deeply. Marcus had been laid off from a decent-paying job at a manufacturing plant 2 years earlier, when the company moved operations overseas. Since then, he had been cobbling together income from whatever work he could find. His ex-wife had moved to California for a job opportunity, leaving Marcus with full custody of Emma. He had turned down opportunities to relocate because he wanted Emma to maintain stability in her school and friendships. Everything he did was centered around providing the best life possible for his daughter, even if it meant sacrificing his own comfort and financial security. Victoria made a decision that would surprise her own board of directors. She called Marcus directly, having obtained his phone number through legitimate channels. "Mr. Thompson, this is Victoria Sterling. I hope I'm not disturbing you." Marcus was surprised to hear from her again so soon. "Not at all, Miss Sterling. How are you handling everything after yesterday?" "I'm fine, thanks to you and Max. But I've been thinking about our conversation and I have a proposition for you. Would you be willing to meet with me sometime today? I have an idea that might benefit both of us." They arranged to meet at a quiet coffee shop downtown, away from the media attention. Victoria arrived with just one security officer, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. Marcus brought Max along, figuring that the dog was now part of whatever this meeting was about. "Mr. Thompson, I want to start by saying that what I'm about to offer has nothing to do with pity or charity," Victoria began. "This is a business proposition based on mutual benefit." Marcus listened carefully as Victoria outlined her idea. Sterling Industries had been looking for ways to improve their community outreach and corporate social responsibility programs. The story of Max's heroism had given her an inspiration. "I want to create a position at my company for you," Victoria explained. "Community Safety Coordinator. Your job would be to work with local schools, community centers, and organizations to promote safety awareness. Max would be part of the program too, a therapy dog and educational ambassador." Marcus was stunned. "Mrs. Sterling, I appreciate the offer, but I don't have experience in that kind of work. I'm a warehouse worker, not a corporate executive," Victoria smiled. "Some of the best ideas come from people with real-world experience, not just corporate training. You understand what it's like to struggle, to worry about your family's safety and security. That perspective is exactly what we need." She went on to explain that the position would come with a salary that was nearly double what Marcus was currently making from his 2 jobs combined. It would also include full health benefits, which would cover Max's medical expenses as well as the family's healthcare needs. "There's one more thing," Victoria added. "The company has a program that provides college scholarships for employees' children. Emma would be eligible for full tuition assistance when she's ready for university." Marcus felt overwhelmed. It seemed too good to be true. "Why would you do all this? Max was just being a good dog. We didn't save you expecting anything in return." "That's exactly why I'm making this offer," Victoria replied. "You and your family represent the kind of values my company wants to promote. Integrity, courage, putting others before yourself. Plus, Max has already proven he has incredible instincts. Having him as part of our safety program could genuinely help other people." Over the following days, Marcus considered the offer carefully. He talked it over with Emma, who was excited about the possibility of her father having a real job that didn't require him to work nights and weekends. He also consulted with his few close friends, most of whom encouraged him to accept. The local veterinarian, Dr. Jennifer Palmer, who had been treating Max's heart condition, was enthusiastic about the idea. "Max has always been special," she told Marcus. "His ability to read situations and people is remarkable. Using those talents to help others seems like a perfect fit." The media continued to follow the story, particularly as word leaked out about Victoria's job offer. Some critics suggested it was a publicity stunt, but most people saw it as a genuine gesture of gratitude and smart business sense. Marcus finally accepted the position, and his first day at Sterling Industries was covered by local news crews. The company had prepared a small office for him, and they had even installed a dog bed and water bowl for Max. The other employees welcomed both of them warmly, and many had already heard the story of Max's heroic actions. Emma was perhaps the most excited about the change. Her father would now have regular hours, weekends off, and significantly less financial stress. She could participate in school activities without worrying about the cost, and Max's medical needs would be fully covered. "Dad, does this mean we're rich now?" Emma asked on Marcus's first day at his new job. Marcus laughed. "We're not rich, sweetheart, but we're secure. And sometimes that's even better." Victoria had assigned Marcus to work with Dr. Amanda Foster, the company's director of community relations. Dr. Foster had a background in psychology and had worked extensively with therapy animal programs. She would help Marcus develop the educational curriculum that would become the foundation of their safety awareness initiative. The goal is to visit schools and community groups, teaching basic safety awareness while Max demonstrates how animals can be part of keeping us safe, Dr. Foster explained. "We'll cover everything from recognizing dangerous situations to understanding how to react in emergencies." The program was tentatively called Max's Safety Squad, and the initial response from schools was overwhelming. Principals and teachers were eager to have the famous hero dog visit their students, and the educational component made it an easy sell to school boards. Max seemed to understand his new role instinctively. During practice sessions at Sterling Industries, he would sit calmly while Marcus spoke to groups of employees. When children were involved, Max's gentle nature shone through, but he also demonstrated the alertness that had saved Victoria's life. The transformation in Marcus's life was remarkable. For the first time in years, he felt confident about the future. The constant stress of financial uncertainty was gone, replaced by the satisfaction of meaningful work. He was making a real difference in his community while providing a stable home for Emma. But the most significant change was perhaps the least visible. Marcus had spent so long focused on mere survival that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to have hope and purpose. Now, watching Max interact with children and seeing the positive impact of their work, he felt genuinely optimistic about what lay ahead. Victoria, meanwhile, was discovering that her impulsive decision to hire Marcus was paying dividends in ways she hadn't expected. The positive media coverage had enhanced her company's reputation, but more importantly, the safety program was generating genuine interest from other businesses and organizations. Several companies had inquired about implementing similar programs, and Victoria was considering franchising the concept. The success was a reminder that sometimes the best business decisions come from the heart rather than a boardroom strategy session. By following her instinct to help Marcus and honor Max's heroism, Victoria had created something meaningful that benefited everyone involved. 6 months after the incident at Millennium Park, the Max's Safety Squad program had become a phenomenon that extended far beyond Chicago. Marcus and Max were visiting their third school of the week, Roosevelt Elementary, where 200 excited children waited in the gymnasium to meet the famous hero dog. "Good morning, everyone," Marcus called out to the assembled students. "I'm Mr. Thompson, and this is my partner Max. We're here to talk about how we can all work together to stay safe in our communities." Max sat beside Marcus, tail wagging gently as children pointed and whispered excitedly. The dog wore a specially designed vest that identified him as a therapy and education animal, and he seemed to understand the importance of his role. His calm presence immediately captured the attention of every child in the room. The program they had developed was interactive and age-appropriate. Marcus would begin with basic safety concepts, then Max would demonstrate various scenarios. The dog had been trained to show children how animals can alert humans to danger, how to properly approach unfamiliar animals, and even basic emergency response behaviors. "Who can tell me what Max did that made him famous?" Marcus asked the group. Dozens of hands shot up and Marcus selected a girl in the front row. "He stopped a bad man from hurting someone," she said proudly. "That's right," Marcus confirmed, but Max didn't plan to be a hero that day. He was just being observant and trusting his instincts. Today we're going to learn how all of you can be observant and trust your instincts too. The presentation included real-world scenarios that children might encounter. Max would demonstrate appropriate reactions to various situations, staying close to trusted adults, alerting others to potential dangers, and remaining calm during emergencies. The children were captivated by Max's intelligence and responsiveness. During a break between sessions, Marcus received a call from Victoria Sterling. She had exciting news to share. "Marcus, I just got off the phone with the governor's office," Victoria said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "They want to present Max with the Illinois Hero Animal Award next month. It comes with a $10,000 grant for animal welfare programs." Marcus was amazed by how their story continued to grow. The award would be presented at the state capitol, with Emma in attendance to represent the family. It was an honor that Marcus had never imagined possible when he first adopted Max from the shelter. The success of their program had also attracted attention from national media. A major television network had approached them about featuring their story in a documentary about everyday heroes. The potential exposure could help them expand their safety education program to other states. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from the local community. Marcus regularly received letters from parents whose children had attended their presentations. Teachers reported that students were more aware of their surroundings and more confident about seeking help when they felt unsafe. One letter particularly touched Marcus. A mother wrote that her 7-year-old son had remembered the safety lessons when he became separated from her in a crowded shopping mall. Instead of panicking, the boy had followed the protocol Max had demonstrated, staying in place and alerting a uniformed security guard. The family was reunited within minutes. Emma Thompson had also blossomed in the months since her father's career change. Her grades had improved significantly now that Marcus was available to help with homework and attend school events. She had joined the school's junior environmental club, inspired by learning about her father's work with Sterling Industries. "Dad, do you think Max knows he's famous?" Emma asked one evening as they watched a news segment about their program. Marcus looked at Max, who was contentedly chewing on a toy nearby. "I think Max knows he's loved and that he's helping people. That's probably all that matters to him." The financial stability that came with Marcus's new position had transformed their lives in practical ways too. They had moved to a larger apartment with a yard where Max could run and play. Emma had been able to join a youth soccer league, something she had wanted to do for years but they couldn't afford. Marcus had also been able to start saving money for the first time in years. The college fund that Victoria's company had established for Emma was growing, and Marcus was contributing to it monthly. The knowledge that Emma would have educational opportunities that he never had brought him tremendous satisfaction. Victoria Sterling had been following their progress closely, and she was amazed by what Marcus and Max had accomplished. The safety program had exceeded all her expectations, both in terms of community impact and business benefits for her company. Sterling Industries had received numerous awards for corporate social responsibility, and several major clients had chosen to work with them specifically because of their community involvement. More importantly, Victoria had formed a genuine friendship with Marcus and his family. She often attended their presentations when her schedule allowed, and she had been present for many of Max's training sessions. Watching the dog work with children had given her a new appreciation for the intelligence and empathy that animals could demonstrate. The incident at Millennium Park had changed Victoria's perspective in other ways too. She had increased security measures for public events, but she had also become more involved in addressing the root causes of workplace violence. Sterling Industries had implemented new programs for employee mental health support and conflict resolution. Derek Hoffman, meanwhile, had pleaded guilty to attempted murder and was serving a 12-year prison sentence. During his time in custody, he had received counseling and had written a letter of apology to Victoria. While she appreciated his attempt to make amends, the incident had served as a reminder of how quickly someone's life could spiral out of control. The success of Max's safety squad had also inspired other businesses to create similar programs. A restaurant chain had started using rescue dogs to teach children about nutrition and healthy eating. A construction company had developed a safety program featuring trained dogs that could detect gas leaks and other hazards. The concept of using animals in educational and safety roles was spreading across various industries. Dr. Palmer, Max's veterinarian, had become something of a celebrity herself, as reporters sought expert opinions about Max's abilities. She explained that while Max's actions were extraordinary, many dogs possess similar instincts and intelligence. The key was proper training and socialization, along with owners who paid attention to their pets' behavioral cues. "Max is special, but he's not unique," Dr. Palmer told a television interviewer. "Thousands of dogs in shelters across the country have similar potential. They just need someone to give them a chance and help them develop their natural abilities." This message had led to increased adoptions at animal shelters throughout the Chicago area. Many families who had heard Max's story were inspired to adopt rescue dogs, hoping to find their own four-legged hero. While not every adopted dog would prevent an assassination attempt, they all had the potential to enrich their families' lives in countless ways. Marcus had also become an advocate for animal rescue organizations. He regularly spoke at adoption events, sharing Max's story and encouraging people to consider shelter animals. He emphasized that Max had been a scared, uncertain dog when they first brought him home, and that patience and love had helped him become the confident animal he was today. The transformation in Marcus's public speaking abilities was remarkable. The shy, struggling single father had evolved into a confident educator and advocate. He had discovered talents he never knew he possessed, and he found genuine fulfillment in his work. One particularly memorable presentation took place at Emma's school. Marcus had been invited to speak to her class about career opportunities and following your dreams. Standing in front of his daughter's classmates with Max beside him, Marcus reflected on how dramatically their lives had changed. "A year ago, I never would have imagined that I'd be standing here talking to you about my career," Marcus told the students. "I was working 2 jobs just to pay our bills, and I worried constantly about Emma's future. Sometimes life surprises you in the most incredible ways. Emma beamed with pride as her father spoke. Her classmates asked dozens of questions about Max and the safety program, and several expressed interest in careers working with animals. The presentation sparked discussions about service animals, animal behavior, and the importance of treating all animals with kindness and respect. After the presentation, Emma's teacher pulled Marcus aside. "Your daughter talks about you and Max constantly," she said. "She's so proud of what you've accomplished, and it shows in everything she does. You've given her a wonderful example of resilience and determination." As they drove home from the school that day, Emma was unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke up from the back seat where she was petting Max. "Dad, do you ever miss our old life?" she asked. Marcus considered the question carefully. Their old life had been difficult, filled with financial stress and uncertainty, but it had also been simple in some ways, just the three of them against the world. "I miss some things about it," Marcus answered honestly. "I miss how quiet our evenings used to be, just the three of us. But I don't miss worrying about money all the time, and I don't miss feeling like I couldn't give you the opportunities you deserved." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "I like that you're happier now," she said. "And I like that Max gets to help other kids learn about being safe." That evening, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed, she had one more question. "Dad, what do you think would have happened if we hadn't adopted Max?" Marcus paused, considering the implications of her question. Without Max, Derek Hoffman might have succeeded in his attack. Victoria Sterling could have been killed, and Marcus would still be struggling to make ends meet with two low-paying jobs. Emma's future would have remained uncertain, limited by their financial circumstances. "I think everything happens for a reason, sweetheart," Marcus said finally. "We were meant to find Max, and he was meant to find us. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places." As he turned off Emma's bedroom light, Marcus realized how true those words were. A routine visit to the animal shelter 2 years earlier had led to this extraordinary chain of events. Their decision to adopt a rescue dog had not only saved Max's life, but had ultimately transformed their own lives in ways they never could have imagined. 2 years had passed since that fateful day at Millennium Park, and the lives of everyone involved had been permanently transformed. Marcus Thompson stood on the stage at the Chicago Convention Center, looking out at an audience of over 1,000 people who had gathered for the National Safety Education Conference. Max sat beside him, now wearing a specially designed harness that identified him as a certified therapy and education animal. "Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago my dog Max and I were just trying to get through each day," Marcus began, his voice clear and confident. "We had no idea that a simple walk in the park would lead us to this moment, speaking to safety professionals from across the country about the power of instinct, awareness, and community." The Max's Safety Squad program had grown beyond anyone's expectations. They now operated in 12 states with over 50 trained teams of handlers and therapy dogs. The program had reached more than 100,000 children and had been credited with preventing numerous accidents and dangerous situations through increased safety awareness. Emma Thompson, now 10 years old, sat in the front row with Victoria Sterling. Watching her father with obvious pride, Emma had become something of a junior ambassador for the program, often accompanying Marcus and Max to presentations and sharing her perspective as a child who had grown up with a hero dog. Victoria had kept her promise about Emma's education. The girl was now enrolled in an accelerated academic program and had expressed interest in veterinary medicine, inspired by watching Max work with other animals and children. Her college fund was fully secured, and she had opportunities that seemed unlimited. The success of their story had also led to a book deal. Marcus had initially been hesitant about writing a book, but Victoria had convinced him that their story could inspire others facing difficult circumstances. Hero at Heart, How a Rescue Dog Changed Everything had become a bestseller, with proceeds supporting animal rescue organizations nationwide. Max, now 6 years old, had become one of the most famous dogs in America. He had appeared on numerous television shows, been featured in magazines, and had even inspired a children's animated series. But despite all the attention, he remained the same gentle, intuitive animal that Marcus and Emma had fallen in love with at the shelter. Dr. Palmer had documented Max's ongoing health throughout his rise to fame. The heart condition that had once worried Marcus was now well managed with medication and regular checkups, all covered by the comprehensive health benefits that came with Marcus's position at Sterling Industries. Max has actually benefited from all the activity and mental stimulation, Dr. Palmer explained during a recent interview. Working therapy dogs often live longer, healthier lives because they have a sense of purpose and regular social interaction. Max is proof that rescue animals, when given the right opportunities, can achieve remarkable things. The impact on animal rescue organizations had been tremendous. The Max effect, as shelters called it, had led to a 40% increase in dog adoptions across the country. Many families specifically sought out golden retrievers and similar breeds, hoping to find their own hero dog. While adoption counselors were careful to manage expectations, the overall result was that thousands of animals found loving homes. Derek Hoffman had served his sentence and been released on parole. He had undergone extensive counseling and had found work at a nonprofit organization that helped former inmates reintegrate into society. In an unexpected turn of events, he had written to Victoria requesting a meeting to apologize in person for his actions. The meeting had taken place in a neutral location, with security present and counselors from both sides. Derek, now 35 and visibly changed by his experiences, had expressed genuine remorse for his actions and gratitude that no one had been harmed. "I was consumed by anger and blame," Derek had told Victoria. "I couldn't see that my problems were my own responsibility to solve. What Max did that day, and what you did afterward in helping Marcus and his family, showed me what real character looks like. I'm trying to live up to that example now." Victoria had been moved by Derek's apparent transformation, though she maintained appropriate caution. She had agreed to write a letter of support for his parole review, acknowledging his efforts to rebuild his life and contribute positively to society. The incident had also led to significant changes in corporate security protocols nationwide. Victoria had worked with other business leaders to develop better threat assessment procedures and employee support programs. Sterling Industries had become a model for how companies could address workplace violence prevention while maintaining a positive corporate culture. Marcus's role at Sterling Industries had evolved as well. He was now the director of community safety programs, overseeing not just Max's safety squad but also workplace safety initiatives and community outreach programs. His salary had increased accordingly, and the family had moved to a house in a suburb with excellent schools and a large backyard for Max. The stability and success had allowed Marcus to pursue interest he had never had time for during his struggling years. He had earned certifications in emergency response and child psychology, making him more effective in his educational role. He had also started dating again, having met Sarah Chen, a teacher who worked with special needs children, at one of their school presentations. Sarah had been initially attracted to Marcus's work with Max, but she had quickly fallen for his gentle nature and dedication to his daughter. Emma approved of the relationship, especially after Sarah proved to be an enthusiastic supporter of Max's work and a loving presence. In their family dynamic, the speaking engagement at the National Safety Education Conference represented a milestone for Marcus personally and professionally. Standing before an audience of experts in safety, education, and emergency response, he felt a sense of accomplishment that went far beyond financial success. "The lesson that Max taught us," Marcus continued in his speech, "is that heroism isn't about planning or training or even courage in the traditional sense. It's about paying attention, trusting your instincts, and acting when action is needed." Max didn't hesitate because he wasn't overthinking the situation. He simply responded to what his senses told him was wrong. In the audience, Dr. Amanda Foster, who had helped develop the original curriculum for their program, was taking notes for a research paper she was writing about the effectiveness of animal-assisted safety education. The preliminary data showed that children who participated in Max's safety squad programs retained safety information 60% better than those who received traditional classroom instruction. After the presentation, Marcus and Max were surrounded by conference attendees, wanting to learn more about implementing similar programs in their own communities. Representatives from schools, police departments, and safety organizations asked detailed questions about training protocols, funding sources, and measuring program effectiveness. Victoria Sterling, who had been instrumental in every step of the program's development, watched the scene with satisfaction. Her impulsive decision to help Marcus and his family had evolved into a nationwide movement that was genuinely making communities safer. "You know," Victoria said to Emma as they watched Marcus and Max work the crowd, "I think your dad and Max have taught us all something important about seeing opportunities in unexpected places." Emma nodded seriously, wise beyond her years. "Dad says that good things happen when you pay attention to what matters most. For him, what mattered most was taking care of me and Max. Everything else grew from that." As the conference wound down and they prepared to return to Chicago, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The frightened single father who had worried constantly about providing for his daughter seemed like a different person now. The transformation had been gradual but profound, built on a foundation of hard work, genuine gratitude, and the unexpected opportunities that had emerged from Max's moment of heroism. That evening, as they sat in their hotel room, Emma worked on homework while Marcus reviewed speaking notes for their next presentation. Max was curled up on the hotel carpet, contentedly chewing on his favorite toy. The scene was peaceful and ordinary, a stark contrast to the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. "Dad," Emma said, looking up from her math problems, "do you think we'll still be doing this when I'm grown up?" Marcus considered the question. Emma would be starting college in 8 years, and by then, their story might be old news. But the principles they taught, awareness, community responsibility, and trusting your instincts, would always be relevant. "I think we'll be doing whatever helps people the most," Marcus answered. "Maybe it will still be safety programs with Max, or maybe it will be something completely different. The important thing is that we'll be doing it together." Max looked up at the sound of his name, tail thumping against the carpet. The dog who had started as a rescue animal, then became a pet, and finally evolved into a national symbol of heroism, seemed perfectly content with whatever the future might bring. His simple presence had changed not just the lives of Marcus and Emma, but had rippled outward to touch thousands of other lives in ways both large and small. As they prepared for bed that night, Marcus realized that their story wasn't really about a single dramatic moment when Max stopped a dangerous man. It was about the daily choice to pay attention, to care about others, and to act when action was needed. In the end, those were lessons that any person and any dog could teach and learn, regardless of whether cameras were rolling or crowds were watching. The real heroism happened in ordinary moments, when ordinary beings chose to do extraordinary things for each other.